have the capability to turn your video on and off. I'm sorry, you do have the capability. So if you're more comfortable in this setting, not having your camera on, that's perfectly fine. Please feel free to do that. I will also mention that prior to the live Q&A session, I do ask that you remain muted. It'll help minimize the background noise while the speakers are talking. During the Q&A session, however, I do welcome you to unmute yourself and please feel free to ask questions. I want to make sure that Coach Willits is earning every penny of his pay, so please ask a lot of tough questions today. Also, if you're experiencing any issues, please feel free to drop your issues into the chat, and Crew Keller or myself will try to address those as quickly as we can. So those were the housekeeping items. Again, welcome. We're really excited to have all of you here. We have a guest, a special guest, in addition to Coach Willits. President Teresa Amat is joining us today. President Amat, thank you. We cannot express to you how excited we are to be able to welcome you to this. And as many of you know, President Amat is coming into the the twilight, I suppose, of her journey here at Knox. As the president who hired me, I think she's fantastic. I realize that's probably a little biased, but you know, she has been a friend and a valued colleague to athletics. She has championed sports. She has championed mental health and so many initiatives within sports. And she has just been a real friend to athletics. And I will say that while I've only been here the last 3 years under her leadership, I can say without doubt that during her 10-year tenure here, athletics has made quite a jump in many, many ways. And I think all of that is a direct result of her commitment and her joy of sport and her value. The value she sees in sport. And so I'm going to stop because I don't want to make her cry. I can see it. But President Amat, welcome. We're going to turn it over to you for some comments.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Danielle. I'm happy to be with you, and it's an exciting time here on campus. I'm looking out at some names that I see and some that I just have to say I really missed seeing this fall. I'm talking about the Pauls and those Huskies, for example. It's been a long time since I've seen dogs in the bowl and all that goes into the family of football, and I miss it very much. But we're thawing out here from the winter, and I think we believe that we are potentially turning a corner on the pandemic, and so what a wonderful time to look ahead to the next phase of Prairie Fire football. And I will tell you that even though I will retire, I'm going to be watching the games live on my computer from Pennsylvania. So I want, first of all, to thank everybody who participated in this search. As you know, we had a very big field and a very talented field of people who wanted to come and lead Knox football. And so we're thrilled to welcome Aaron back to the campus. Aaron, you beat out that competition. And I think that's a good sign. It's a good way to start. So you have mastered the essential elements of winning, and congratulations to you for that. Even though I'm saddened that my final year at Knox didn't include fall sport competition, all the different fall sports, I do want to acknowledge to those of you off campus that our student athletes, and I'm going to get emotional, that they did compete. They competed against a formidable adversary, which was a global pandemic. And they adhered to the most rigorous protocols of testing and masking and distancing. A lot of people said college students don't have the discipline to do that. I mean, I heard that from so many people, this kind of derisive tone of, oh, what do you expect? They're just college students. They're going to get into trouble. But I'll tell you this, our student athletes had the discipline. They kept us safe and they kept each other safe. And so, although we did not have fall sport, the way we think about it, I am as proud of our Prairie Fire teams and our athletic personnel as I have ever been for the way they brought us through this. So Aaron, the good news is that you will have the privilege of leading this remarkable group into the next phase of competition, which hopefully will be not as formidable an adversary as a global pandemic. But if we beat that pandemic, then I think we can beat anybody. Go Fire, and welcome, Aaron. Thanks.
Thank you, President Amat. We appreciate that. And so now I have the pleasure of giving Aaron a formal introduction. As President Amat mentioned, we had over 150 candidates. And I will throw out a thank you to the committee because they did a lot of work to get us to this point. But Aaron, I'm thrilled to have a coach of Aaron's caliber. For those of you that don't know, Aaron comes from a long, good, solid background and in a pretty tough conference. But we're excited to have someone of his caliber to lead our young men, to lead our program, frankly, to join me as a leader in the building as well. But Aaron's background is by way of an incredibly strong conference, one of the strongest probably in Division III football, and his ability to lead a nationally ranked offense and those student athletes was not lost on us, and that was a big part of it. But I'll say, in addition to his offensive intelligence, I've been thoroughly impressed with Aaron's well-rounded knowledge of the game. I am a football fan. I grew up in the South. Every Sunday was NFL day with my dad, whether I liked it or not, and I liked it. Every Saturday was college football with my dad. So I know enough to be dangerous. And I've enjoyed my conversations with Aaron because we talk a lot about both sides of the ball, and I know enough to have a conversation. And one of the things that's really impressed me is just his well-rounded knowledge of the game. He brings a very high football IQ to the table, but it extends well beyond the offensive side, which I think is very important for a head coach. He's knowledgeable about the defensive side. He's very knowledgeable about special teams. So overall, I couldn't be more pleased to welcome Aaron back to Knox and to have him lead our program. As many of you know, Aaron is a 2008 graduate here of Knox, and he comes back to us by way of Concordia College in Minnesota, where he was the offensive coordinator. In his 9 years with the Cobbers, his teams went 62-28. Just let that sink in. 62-28, 48-24 in the Minnesota Intercollegiate Athletic Conference. That is a fine, fine football conference. During his tenure, he coached 21 all-conference performers, 4 all-region performers, an All-American. But additionally, one thing that really stood out to me about Aaron was his understanding of the strengths of Knox, the priority we place on cultural competency, how we create and implement a recruiting plan that goes well beyond the football program, but that will complement the college and all of our teams. His desire and willingness to just be a team player and to be integrated into the total department in college really has been very refreshing. And I speak for the whole committee in saying that was something that was very important to all of us. So also joining us today, I need to recognize Crew Keller. Crew is my cohort in crime. He is our K-Club coordinator. He's only been with us a year. I think a lot of you have probably already gotten to know him. I can tell you that within months, I considered Crew an extension of my office in many ways. He has just been a great colleague and a great collaborator. And I think we've done some really fine work in the year here. We've got a lot of new initiatives going on. So I hope, if you haven't, that you'll have the opportunity to speak with Crew at some point, have a conversation with him, just get to know him a little bit. But he has really done some fantastic things with our K-Club, with alumni engagement, advancement, and really just, again, another team player within the department here. So with that, Crew, I set you up. I'm going to turn it over to you and get this event going for us.
Awesome. Fantastic. Thank you, Daniela, for the awesome introduction. President Mott, always a pleasure to see you. And Aaron, welcome. Again, to all those attending this virtual event, thank you. It's so great to see so many of you here, many of which, I recognize your names, and others I'm seeing for the first time. All said, thank you for logging on today. This is fantastic. Two last classic Zoom items to go through before we get started. First of which, you'll notice that we are using the spotlight feature, so that way we can adjust from speaker to speaker. If you aren't a fan of that, feel free to go ahead in your upper right-hand corner and switch the view from speaker to gallery, and that way you can see everybody that's logged on the call. And then second, following these first few questions that I have for Aaron, just to get the ball rolling, we will open this up for live Q&A. So at that time, I welcome you to either unmute yourself, utilize the chat feature, or simply use the raise your hand feature. And that way we can know that you have a question for Coach Willits. And again, when you have a question for him, I encourage you to share your class year or your relation to the program when you're introducing yourself. So with that being said, let's go ahead and get started. Aaron, welcome. I've got a few questions for you to get things started before I let the audience have at it. So Aaron, first one I've got for you, what were your thoughts of the interview process, and what has it been like to return home and come back to Knox?
Well, there's so much that I want to say with that, and talking about maybe why I've always had this itch to come back. My athletic experience here, and I see some guys that know my athletic experience here, but I was fortunate to play in 38 straight games as a football player here, and then I broke my foot in the south end zone on a 2-point conversion. And from that point in time, not having those last 2.5 games has always just been like that I left something here. And back when I was 25 years old, talking to recruits up at Concordia for the first time, I told those guys if I could find a way to get those 2.5 games of eligibility back, like I would, and I'd put on the pads and I'd go. Now at 35, I don't know if putting on the pads is really for me. But I've always had this unfinished business. And I think that there's a lot of guys that I know in alumni classes that are very close to mine, a little bit older, a little bit younger. It always felt like there was that unfinished business. And I think that's, for me, it's unfinished business personally. I think it's that maybe we didn't do enough when I was here for the people that are here. And I'll give him a shout out right now. I know he's not on there, but that's Coach Gibbons. I've got a picture of us from senior day, and I'm not dressed in pads. And that picture causes a whole swirl of emotions for me every time I see it, because that man means so much to me and so much to my Knox experience, and then the alumni. And it's the idea when I came back of for the guys before me, after me, and that it's bigger than yourself, that you're playing for the people that laid the groundwork for you. And I knew that there was going to be that pressure coming back, and I wanted that. I really felt like this process needed to be an alum hire to fully encompass what it means to bring all of those people back together, to be fired up for this program. And, as far as the interview process goes, from the moment that I heard that there was potentially this job was going to open up, it was a competition. I think, somebody already mentioned that to me, on the call. I was here to compete, and I was here to put out the work that I had done, which I think, reflects a high quality and a high standard. But I told a lot of people I was not going to take this process for granted because I was an alum. I see a couple of Paul brothers that are on here. I liken that to recruiting a younger brother of a family. If you have already got a young man on your roster and you're going into the home to sit down with the family and recruit a younger sibling, if you just take it for granted that individual is going to come because they're just like their older brother and they're just going to come to your school because that's just what they do, you're making a big mistake. That person is an individual, and you've got to talk to them that way. And you've got to be, as good a recruiter for that person, because they already know everything about you, right? And you've got to make sure that you go in prepared. And I did that with Knox. Like, I knew that I wanted to make sure that I had my best foot forward with everything that I was doing. I wanted to be prepared. I wanted to make sure that I had everything lined up. And it was 100% a competition. From the minute that I heard that there was an opportunity, I said, I'm going to go get this. And it's one person's job, and it's mine. And because I felt like all along. It needed to be an alum, but in particular, personally, deep down, you know, my competitive spirit, I felt like it needed to be me to come in and move the needle for this program. And now is the right time. And following along with that, I got further validation that was the case in the first time that I got a chance to talk with Daniela. There's so much about her and her transparency and her candidness that foundationally, that is who I am. I want to be upfront, honest. Let's be efficient with our time. Let's call a spade and see exactly where we're at. And even if it hadn't worked out for me, I felt confident that whoever was going to be sitting in this seat was going to be prepared because the administration had put in the investment. President Amat has done a lot since she's been here, from the time that I was a player. So I knew things were headed in the right direction. But when I had that conversation with Danielle, I said, yep, she and I can work together to move the needle for this program, and only further validated that I should be the guy, because I felt like we had a really good connection from the first time that we spoke on the phone.
Right on. Going ahead a little bit more here, present day. You've been on the job a few weeks now. Tell us about, you know, how it's gone. Additionally, what are your thoughts on the team thus far?
It's going fast. I'm kind of on the move all the time. There's a lot of things that I'm in the process of doing, but, you know, in particular with the guys, I felt like one of the first things that I needed to do, and it's just kind of the way that I coach. I was doing some of this stuff at Concordia, but I met with all the guys individually, essentially for an unlimited amount of time. I needed to get to know them on a personal level. They needed to get to know me on a personal level. So that way, you know, we could grow this thing together. It wasn't about me coming in and slapping my philosophy down on the table saying, hey, this is how it's going to be. You know, there needed to be an opportunity for us to connect and to talk and getting to know those guys. I'm hearing guys that say they want to move the needle for this program. I'm asking them, like, how committed are you? Do you want to do that? I'm getting guys that are saying that they want to be coached hard, that they feel like there is more in this program. And I said, that's great. We're going to find it. And we're going to get the right people around this program. And if you want this, it's going to look different, right? It's just a simple matter of your input and your output. If you want a different result, then you have to do different things, and you've got to put a little bit more in. And that's continued to be the conversation I've had with these guys. But I think there's a willingness for these guys to create the relationship with me, to say, you know what, coach is a good guy, and he's making us do some things that are a little bit different than maybe what we've done before. And they're just trusting the process that this is going to take us where we need to go. And I'm very honest with them that it's a process. It's going to take a little bit of time for us to get where we're going and be doing the things that we need to be doing. But one day at a time, we start, you know, handling our business a little bit more. And we're just right now really focused on controlling what we can control here and getting those guys, you know, moving in the right direction.
Certainly. Next one here for you, and I've got one more after this. How's the coaching staff filling out, and what's recruiting been like since you've been here?
So we're currently in the process of hopefully finishing some things up this week for a defensive coordinator. You know, and a lot of those candidates, I told them this is a short turnaround. And I think, you know, having the opportunity to play 2 games, 100%, you know, there's some conversation of, you know, do I want those as the new guy? And absolutely. I've actually, because Knox is what it is, I actually have a couple of guys that are seniors on their way out, and they already know that they're not using the 5th-year option, right? Because they're already prepared for life. They've got jobs, they've got grad school options, you know. But for me to take those 2 games away, I know what that feeling's like. And I was not gonna short those guys that are seniors on the way out of those 2 games, because I know what that feeling's like. And so if that means that I've got to run around with my hair on fire here a little bit, and a defensive coordinator has to as well, and we've got to figure out a unique schedule to kind of do an install in the month of April before we play, well, then so be it, because everything else that comes out of those opportunities to play here coming up is a positive for us. And so, you know, having that conversation with recruits is good, that we're fighting institutionally to give our kids an opportunity to play and compete. You know, with recruiting, it's going well. You know, talking to the guys that we need to get their deposit down, our commitment list, and then to the guys that we need to take from the accepted and the financial aid to, hey, let's get to a commitment, let's get to the deposit. You know, but the guys that were here, you know, Coach Bonstead, give him a shout out too, because he and I's relationship goes back, but also Adam Reese, Cody Hip, those guys were working without really knowing exactly what was going to happen. And I applaud that, and I appreciate that. And now it's just a matter of trying to bring in the right coaches to join those guys, so that way we can still make a spring recruiting push. I think that's one of the unique things here in the state of Illinois, is that they're just now getting to play football. And I've already talked to a few young men that the idea that their career was just kind of done was it had happened. And because maybe they didn't have that unbelievable senior year, maybe they were a starter as a junior, or maybe they were kind of a key backup as a junior and they just didn't get an opportunity to go out and start as a senior. It just kind of, relegated them to the idea that I'll go to a state school, I don't have a lot of film, or whatever it may be. And now there's an opportunity for those guys to get out, and you can kind of see that renewed energy with regards to playing football. So I think that's huge for us, that there's going to be opportunities to recruit young men that are still in football mode, and they're still having that football energy that we can latch onto, and we can hopefully continue to bring in more and more bodies in this recruiting class to add to the good group that was here last year for the recruiting class.
Definitely. Well, last one here that I have for you. When the team takes the field for the first time for their game, what are they going to look like? What is that team going to look, feel, hit like? What are they going to be?
They're going to have energy. There's going to be a fire and an energy that kind of goes with that. I feel like you can't play this game if you don't have a little bit of swagger, a little bit of emotional energy. That's what this game is about. So you're going to see that. You're going to see a group of guys that wants to play for one another. I think, before I want to win all the games, 100%. Like I want to win every single game. But before we worry about the outside, we've got to take care of the inside. And I think one of the biggest motivators is learning to play for one another, and being invested in one another. And I think you're going to see a team that recognizes that they are a reflection of so many different groups, not just themselves. I've talked to these guys already about putting a product out there that represents the work that they've put in, so the work that you put into it, you get an output. And if you don't like the output, then maybe we need to adjust the input. And so that's, we're working on that now, being outside, starting to do some football specific movement, but that product needs to represent this institution. It needs to represent this administration, the rest of the athletic staff and department. It needs to represent our alumni. And I know that there's a lot of those guys that have reached out to me, and I feel that good pressure, right? I picked up all these teammates, and I don't want to let people down. I never wanted to be that teammate when I was here. I was fortunate to be a captain and kind of put into that leadership role by my teammates when I was a player. And I recognize that now. My job is to uphold the integrity of this program, and it's our program. And I think I've told a lot of people that on campus, even the admissions office and the professors, when I had an opportunity to talk with Larry Welch, through the interview process as a faculty athletic rep. Having two little kids myself, that adage that it takes a village to raise a family, it takes a village. It takes an entire campus. It takes an entire alumni population to run a football program. And, everybody has an opportunity to impact that, some greater than others, right? I obviously get the opportunity to call the plays on game day, so I'm in it right there. But there's an opportunity for all of us to be involved and see this product grow the way that we want it to, because it's our program. It's not my program. I'm here to represent all of us, and it's our program. And I think when you see those guys go out, you're going to see a group of guys that are hungry, that want to play for one another, and they're going to do their job to the absolute best of their ability. And the result is going to take care of itself, because right now we're in a control what we can control mode. And if we start doing that on a regular basis, now we're going to start to grow. And then we'll start taking on some bigger tasks. But that's the biggest one that we're handling right now, is controlling ourselves and making sure that we're our best selves on a daily basis, on and off the field. So that way, we can grow as football players and then increase that product that's out there.
Certainly. Well, I know you all logged on today so you can have questions with Aaron and not to hear me talk. So at this time, I want to move along to our live question and answer portion. So I invite you to either unmute yourself, utilize the chat feature, or utilize the raise your hand feature. So that way you have a time to ask questions or two for Aaron. So at this time, I invite you to do so, and we'll go ahead and get this started.
Well, if nobody else is going to jump in, I'll. Don't everybody raise your hand at once.
Who is this guy? Who let him in here?
I don't know. They let me on the internet, so it's hard to stop at that point. Aaron, it's great to see you back. Really proud of what you've done. Glad to see that you've taken that to that next level. And frankly, when we're looking at the candidates and hearing about who was there, I'm glad the committee made the right choice. So thank you to the committee on that end. From this standpoint, I'll skip all of the giving Aaron a bunch of grief. But really what I wanted to look at is from a alumni standpoint and otherwise, really what the plans or goals are for the program with respect to recruiting strategy, but also fundraising and development as far as if there's equipment need, if there's financial need. A lot of us now being in the professional space do have either access to resources or resources that we can give directly. And knowing that they'd be going into the absolute most capable hands with, I'll throw one in there, with that fire for everything that you got going on. I mean, I don't have any questions that if we were to be able to facilitate some of those things for you, that they would be used to the absolute best of their ability. So really just kind of wanted to see, on both ends is what the strategy was, or if there is one yet. I know there is, but and then what we can do as alumni from outside the program-ish, but how can we support you best?
Absolutely. And I've told the coaching staff this, and I've kind of told all the coaches too that I run into, if you want to know something about my vision for the program, just ask. I've got an answer of how I want to attack that. And I think first and foremost, the alumni are a huge, huge thing that I want to make sure that we're involved in the program. But I ask for patience a little bit because I've got 2 games. I've got to hire a staff. I've got to get these guys prepared, and I do coach, and we've got to recruit, right? But I want to make sure that the alumni are involved. And the first way that I want to make sure that alumni feel involved, and this will come back and will lead into recruiting here as part of my approach, is that it doesn't always have to be financially, right? Like the biggest thing that I want to do right now is create the relationships with alumni and identify different ways that they can get back to the program. I've had a lot of guys, that are particularly invested in the recruiting side of things. I've had a lot of alumni that are particularly interested in maybe the experience that our guys have on campus. And in a lot of ways that could be, the financial side of things. I've had a lot of alumni that have touched base with me since getting in this position that they're kind of worried about where our current students end up. They're kind of looking at the career path, and there's multiple different ways that we can start to impact that. And in particular with recruiting, obviously, if you have anybody that you want to recommend to us, please do. As we work kind of on our recruiting approach, obviously being a local guy myself, I think that there's opportunities to recruit locally. And I think there's things that we do that set ourselves apart from other institutions, whether that be the Red and the White, or that be Augustana, or that be anybody else within, the 2-hour radius. And I think we have to establish some of those relationships, or we have to reconnect with some of those institutions. My brother's a local high school football coach, and I know that depending on the year, there may or may not be guys, but there hasn't always been consistent outreach, and I want to make sure that I establish those relationships. And maybe a little biased, but I know small school football in Western and Northwest Illinois is where the best stuff's played. No offense to anybody else, but that's a personal bias there. But definitely we got to balance the small school and the large school. And I've got to work with the mission side, identify those schools that they think are priorities for us, and that we've had a longstanding success of those students coming here and being successful in the classroom, not just on the football field. But we've got to make sure that we hit those larger areas, but we have to be efficient with it. We can't just sell out and try to hit every Chicago school. It's going to be nice to be in contact with all of them. But if we went after every Chicago area school in particular, so is everybody else in the CCIW, everybody else in the Midwest Conference, everybody in the NSIC, all of the D1s. It's a saturated market. So we've got to make sure that we rely on the connections that we do have. So if you know somebody in particular, let us know. We've got a lot of alumni that are coaching at those high schools who I've started to reach out with that are going to be great relationships for us. It allows us to be a little more efficient, a little more targeted. But I do plan, COVID is obviously impacting some of that, is that when we're up there, that we have an opportunity to kind of take our staff to the Chicago area, and we're going to blitz it. And we're going to be up there, and we want to go out, and we want to make sure that we're targeting as many of those kids as possible. But then also, if we're there for an extended period of time, we've got an opportunity for those alumni that are in the area to potentially get together and see us. Because as much as we want to be recruiting student athletes, that's the next generation. I do recognize that through some of the conversations that I've had with alumni that I need to be kind of recruiting alumni. There's some guys that maybe, need that outreach to feel like they can be a part of the program. And so we want to create those relationships as well. And then I think ultimately, that does lead to, as you establish that relationship and you're invested in the alumni and the alumni are communicating back with you, I think that leads to the question, whether it comes from the alumni that, hey, what can I do, to help? Where can I give some money? Or eventually we're on a good relationship, alumni and myself as head football coach, so that I can feel comfortable saying, hey, we can use a little bit of help here. What do you think you could do? Can you make some calls? Is that dollars and cents? But I can tell you that through a lot of conversations too, I do encourage donation to the K Club. There is money that comes from the K Club that benefits our program. And I know sometimes we want to make sure that it's sport specific. But I can tell you right now, the more money that comes into the K Club, the better off all of us are. And I think definitely me coming back is, one, to move the needle for this football program, but to continue to grow and invest in the entire athletic department. I'm excited to be back and see Emily Klein. I've already got a good relationship going with Ben Davis, in men's basketball, as those guys' office are right up here. I'm working with Evander Wells a lot because we've got football track guys. One of our better football players is also one of the fastest guys in the country. So we're working that two sports. And obviously for guys that are maybe familiar or not familiar, Coach I and I go way back. And Coach Gibbons' son, Charlie, is a two-sport player here. So anything that benefits the K Club and everybody in general, we will get some of that. But obviously any opportunity that anybody wants to kind of help us out is huge, because we do want to make sure that it's kind of the age-old adage, you want to leave it better than you found it. Well, that's why I came back, is because I want to now have it better than it was when I was here. And if you have the opportunity to help and give, that would be huge. And for the rest of the guys on the call that, maybe haven't put two and two together, Jaron and I have known each other for a long time. I guess technically we're never roommates, but may as well have been roommates for a couple of years in there. And so that relationship goes way back. And like I said, there's a lot of names as I kind of scroll through the top here that I'm very familiar with. But I hope that gives you a rough idea of what I'm thinking about. But that alumni stuff, that could be writing a letter to a young man or a recruit. That could be talking to one of our guys about a professional goal. It could be the financial side of things, or it could just be, for the guys that I'm close with, just an opportunity to have a conversation with me and just let me talk a little bit.
Absolutely. I brought that up, and not to put you on the spot on that side, but more so from the standpoint of, I guess myself as an example with us having the network and resources that we do. I'm happy to put those to use if, we need a relationship with any of the major suppliers, if it's Nike or Under Armour or whatever we may need. Don't ever hesitate to ask. The world's a really funny place when you get to certain places in it, and whether it's professional, personal, otherwise. I mean, just feel free to let us know. I mean, it doesn't have to be a big formal thing. I'm sure there's other alumni that feel the same way, but there's a lot of unique resources and a lot of outreach and capability, in this call and otherwise. So, I'd be happy to, work with you on that or whatever it may be. It doesn't have to be super formal, but just wanted to put that out there because I know it's something that you're focusing on in the background, but, did want to, if that's something we could alleviate some of that side, whether it's equipment or otherwise, or a contact or a relationship with a company, whatever it may be, if we can take that off your plate through our network, please do let us know. We're all here to support you, and, we got you 100%. So excited to see what you do.
I appreciate that, brother. Thanks.
I'll go to Brian Paul here next. I saw he had his hand raised. Brian, what do you have for us?
Hi, Brian Paul, class of 2013. Sorry, everybody, for my family being brought up twice so far. We're on pace now for 4 more name drops. Anyway, Aaron, we know each other, but I'm hearing a little bit of your vision here. I know you communicate. I've been around the team for a very long time. I've seen a lot of iterations of the team. One thing I haven't seen a lot of is success. My question for you is, you've been around as a player, as a coach, you spent some time away at a successful program. What do you bring in here? What's going to be different at Knox College day one of your tenure? And, of course, how is that going to lead to success?
So the easiest one is the expectation. We were out running the other day, And Coach Gibbons came up to me. He goes, yeah, some of those guys says that's about the hardest they've worked on a football field in a long time, or maybe at all. Just the minimum standard of expectation is going to be higher. And for us to get there, like, it's already higher than where we were. And so that's where we're working to get to now. And it's going to continue to grow. And I think, coming back to that, and I know we get a lot of questions with regards, let's talk about the elephant in the room, the red and the white. At Concordia, I had the opportunity to play against the University of St. Thomas, making transition D1. I played against St. John's, perennial power. I played against Bethel, multiple MIAX teams in the playoff. And then we went out and we played Whitewater and Wisconsin lacrosse. I had an opportunity to play Whitewater at home. I had an opportunity to go to Wisconsin Whitewater. And above all of those, the thing that we did is we focused more on ourselves, but we continue to raise our expectation of what we can and cannot do. And it comes back, and I get that there's some coach speak that goes with it, but we need to do our job to the best of our ability, and the rest of it will take care of itself, but that the expectation has to change. And I think that's been the biggest message from me to the guys the other day, is that you say that you want something different. Well, then you better be prepared to do something different to get it. And I can tell you that it happens at the D3 level, that the expectation is just simply higher than maybe what we've been operating with. And I'm going to ask that, and you're either going to figure out a way to get on that level, because that's what you say you're going to, or you're going to be kind of in that uncomfortable zone for a while. And by no ways am I wanting to run guys out of our program, right? We want everybody to be successful here. We want to give them, the best experience possible, but I want to make sure that they understand that the expectation at the bare minimum is just higher. It just simply is. If you want to win, you've got to do the work to win. It just doesn't happen. And that comes back to a little bit of, the coach speak there, that there's a process. And right now, the biggest part of that process is we've got to identify our limiting factors as a football team. And we have to make sure that our actions match our words. And I think that, as I've had conversations with some of the players and even with the coaching staff here, that our actions haven't always matched the words that are coming out of our mouth, that we want these things, but then the actions don't match. And they're directly connected, and they have to. And for the sake of efficiency, I'm just telling them, like, not in a mean way, definitely just having conversations with guys. But fellas, I can tell that action doesn't match your words. And to put them on the spot and say, guys, you've got to step up.
I'll pitch it to the next one here for you, Aaron. This one comes in from Ken Grimm in the chat box. Ken, great to see you. He said, what is your best memory from a beat Monmouth game? He said he only had one of those.
So my best memory probably doesn't exist, right? I hate losing. But past, the wins and the losses, probably the best memory that I have, involves a couple of people that I think are pretty important and definitely that I've talked to a lot. So it involves Bill Allison and it involves Kevin Megley. So I came in here, my first 2 years, we were an I formation team, and I led block for Kevin. And I like to say that the number 1 and number 2 leading rushers at Knox College are only there in the Hall of Fame because I blocked for Kevin and that my brother blocked for Derek Mortensen. But, in due time, but I was a lead blocker for Kevin. And then my junior year, his senior year, we made the transition to the option attack, and I kind of got to carry it a little bit more. But I Kevin and I were close, but to say that we ran in the same friend circle wasn't exactly the case. But there was always a mutual respect that both of us were competitors, and that he knew I was going to do whatever it took for me to make him successful, whether I was blocking, doing anything else. And there was that deep relationship for us as teammates. And so we got to Kevin's senior year. We're down at Monmouth, and it's not going well towards the end of the game. And Kevin was out there kind of finishing things up as a senior, and we had started to do maybe a few subs here or there, and Coach Allison pulled me out. And for those people that know me really well, there's probably never towards Coach Allison, but there might've been a little bit of an aggressive undertone of why am I out of the game right now? And in particular, that was, why am I out of the game if Kevin is in the game? We're attached. We have been for 3 years, whether I was the lead block and he was the tailback behind me, or I was the fullback and he was the slot. I said, as long as Kevin Megley is in this game, I will be as well. And Coach Allison said, yep, you go do it. And I remember playing through the end of that game. And I had a lot of guys that maybe I lived with that were seniors, a year older than me. But the first person I went up to, and I'm getting a little emotional talking about it, but the first person I went up to after that game is I gave Kevin Magley a big hug, because that was a football specific relationship that started by me being a young guy and him being a sophomore guy, that I was just basically a lead blocker, and it grew into so much more because of the opportunity to play ball. And so without the wins and the losses, which that one still chaps me, that's probably one moment that stands out, as far as the personal level and the relationships that I still want to make sure are in this program, in the future as well.
Thanks very much. I appreciate that. It was just a history memory for me too. My memory was a tackle eligible play in the '63 Monmouth game. I bought the play in. Al Parton said it's for Hadley Pullen, but I said I want it called on the right side, and I managed to get the 2-point PAT. My only reception of the year.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing that as well.
Fun to hear you talk. Good luck.
Thank you very much, sir.
Next one I got here for you, Aaron, and then of course everybody live Q&A, feel free to jump in too. This one's coming from former teammate Jordan Race, class of 10. What will be your plan for recruiting in the suburbs of Chicago, and how will you be recruiting small rural schools versus larger suburban schools? What's kind of your plan for that?
Well, I think you have to find the balance. And the first thing that we've got to do is we got to make sure that we are communicating with all the high schools to recognize where we can be efficient. You want to create relationships with all the high school coaches, but you're hoping that they're upfront and honest with you too, especially when we lay out the framework for the academic requirements to get into Knox College, that if they don't have anybody, we don't have to go to the school, right? You're hoping that you've created a mutual relationship of respect, so that way we can both be efficient with our time. And then what we've done is we've already, particular to 2022, as soon as we can get off the road and it becomes effective for us, both time, financially, and COVID respecting, we want to be able to get off. And we've basically taken the state, we've broken it up into 6 areas, and then we have left the entire northeast corner of the state as a separate entity that's broken up into those 6 areas. So that way we're allowed to get into, our rural areas. We're allowed to get into multiple parts of the state. But like I said, I think I brought it up earlier, when we do go to Chicago, it's going to be all of us, and we're all going to have kind of an assigned area, because if you ask one person to go up and recruit the greater Chicagoland area, that's just an uphill battle. You're going to feel consistently like you're missing a spot, that you need to go. You're going to consistently be in a circumstance where you're trying to drive through traffic, and it's just not time sensitive. So we want to make sure that we're hitting both of those. But for me, it definitely does start locally. I mean, a big priority for me is to be around Galesburg High School. I look at our roster, and when I was here as a player, we had a lot of Galesburg High School and a lot of the local area. I'm one of those guys, and we've got to find that balance. But above all else, we have to find the talent that can actually sort of meet the demand of what we need. We need a student athlete, and I need a guy that's going to work hard for that. And we're using the application as an evaluation tool on the admission side, but we're also looking at the application as an evaluation tool on the type of character the young man's bringing to the table. How quick does he get that application in? For all of us that have applied here, and in the last 15 to 20 years, and maybe it's gone on a little longer than that, there's a lot of pieces that are required to apply to Knox College. Are we dragging our feet? Well, if we've got a guy that's dragging his feet and we're constantly having to ask him 8 times to turn something in, is that kid going to survive here at Knox? Or is he going to be the guy that we consistently have to ask, hey, are you going to class? Are you doing this? Are you doing that? So we want to be upfront and honest with these guys. Definitely make sure that we're finding the guys that we need to. And ultimately too, I think the other thing that comes into play here is any Division III school that I've been a part of, which hasn't been many, but in the conferences, particularly in the MIAC as well. And you look at the Midwest Conference, you've got to have your local, you got to have your in-state, which for us is going to be Chicago. And then you got to have your key areas out of state, and that becomes, what's cost effective for those students coming in, so we've got to maximize, priority, Moline and Peoria airports, particularly maybe Phoenix, Dallas, a little bit down in Florida, the Denver and the Colorado scholarship, the Denver connection. So that way we can get students that are looking across the country that can come here because the academics stand out, for them as well. And, we've always got the opportunity to fly into Chicago. And a beautiful thing is that there's the train that runs down. So we've got to make sure that we're exploring all avenues to find the best kids that are going to come here and do it the right way. And I think all of us can understand that I'm going to have a a certain expectation, but also this campus has a certain expectation. It has an academic integrity that we've got to be able to have those kids understand that there is a way that we go about things, and we've got to identify to them that this place is unique and here's why, and here's why you should want to be here. And, just on that, a little caveat, with the recruiting side of things, it's not even a sales pitch, it's just the fact of the matter. I got asked a question a lot in the MIAC, what compares your school to another school? And I straight up told kids, well, the difference between me and that place is that I coach here. And if you like my energy, if you like who I am, you like what you're hearing from me, then you're going to want to come play for me. That's the difference. I don't coach at another school. Get past it. It's the relationships. And if you're into this, if you can feel my energy and you say, you know what, I think I could play for that guy, well, then let's take the next steps. Let's make sure that we're getting on the application and continuing to move forward.
Hey, Coach, first off, congratulations. Maurice McDavid, class of 2010. I've taken note that there's a good amount of D-line representation on the call today. Ty Burke, a.k.a. Lightning, Joe Garvin, Jaron Rutledge. So I've got two questions. My first question is, I know you're an offensive guy. What will be your involvement in the defense as a head coach? And then my second question is also, just thinking back to some of my contemporaries, who I think in conversations with them after the fact, Black student athletes who had a less than stellar experience. I want to know what is going to be your approach to making sure that student athletes from all the diverse backgrounds that come to Knox are going to have just an excellent experience.
Absolutely. So the first part there with involvement in the defense, obviously as first time head coach, I've got to surround myself with good people, but I need to make sure that I have an understanding of exactly what we're doing. Having a head start, being an offensive guy, we're working through some offensive install now, which obviously I need to be heavily involved with that, as the play caller, for that. But I also need to be able to trust those guys as we install now to step away and make sure that I'm sitting with the defense and have a say. I have a philosophy on defense. I want to be aggressive on the defensive line. I want to make sure that we stop the run. I like zone coverage. I don't like getting beat over the top. I don't want to put our guys on an island and being man. So I need to make sure that I convey kind of what my expectation is with the new defensive staff, with the new defensive coordinator. But definitely I'm going to have the ability to step away in practice and get eyes on those guys. Because I think that kind of leads into partially part of the second question that you have there, is that all the kids need to know that I'm invested in them. They've got to have the opportunity to feel like they can come into the office and they can sit down and talk with me. And that's why I've got to be able to get to the defensive side, so the defensive guys just don't see me as an offensive guy, that they see me as coach, and not necessarily just the head coach. And they need to be able to see me as a person too. They need to see me as a father. They need to see me as a husband. They need to see me as a coworker to everybody else in the athletic department, and that I'm willing to create relationships with everybody. And I think that was the first step in the process for me to make sure that guys felt comfortable in our program and they felt like that I saw them. I think that's, the first thing for me. And that's why I did individual meetings with all the players 100%. And we had a framework for how that went. But first and foremost, my first question was, who are you? And you just go and you tell me what's important. And you tell me what you think I need to know and what you're comfortable sharing at this point in time. And some of those meetings were 45 minutes. The longest one I did was 2 hours and 15 minutes. And at no point was I interested in cutting off the conversation to keep moving. It took a lot of my time for all the right reasons. I believe that investing in one another, having conversations where there's a sense of trust, allows for conversations down the road that are more difficult, right? Yeah, to get into a difficult conversation, whether it be race, inclusion, LGBTQ, whatever that may be, it's hard to just dive off into the deep end, but you have to have it. But if you're invested in the person to begin with and have a relationship, hopefully makes that conversation a little bit more easy to approach. And definitely I wanted all those guys to know that my door is always open. Even if that door is closed, my door is always open for them to come in, because that is the number one thing that I get paid for, right? Is for them to graduate and get the job that they're looking for, whatever that next step is. And then number two, right up there with that, is that they get the experience that they want out of this institution, and that they should feel taken care of. and they should feel safe, and they should feel comfortable to be who they are. I am me. And I understand that I've been fortunate to probably not ever feel really uncomfortable to be myself, that I want them to feel like they can be themselves in our program, and be who they are as part of this campus. So that was really big for me to start off by having those one-on-one meetings to develop that relationship. And I told all those guys, just because we had this meeting today doesn't mean that I know everything about you and that, okay, now I can move on and I can just go be the head coach. Like, no, I want to develop those relationships now and in the future, because relationships are fluid. I think all of us have, some type of relationship that we recognize that, even with my spouse, that's a fluid relationship. If I just make a general assumption that everything's going great, like that may or may not be the case. And so we need to continue to invest in those relationships. And I will continue to meet with all the guys individually and let them know that if they ever have a concern or they ever feel like they need something, that we're here for them as part of football, but also as part of this entire campus.
Aaron Topper-Steinman, class of 70. If Teresa was still on, I want to thank her for 10 years. Thank you, Teresa. Danielle and crew, thanks for your leadership with all this stuff. You're awesome. Aaron, congratulations.
Thank you very much, sir.
Huge challenge. Knox's experience in football has been barely mediocre. And I contributed to that in the late 60s when we won 3 games in 10 years. Ouch. I came back in 1970 with Greg Divers of the world, who is on this, and Dave Ladders of the world is on this, the Gino who supported us, those kind of people, and the Bob Bolliers. And we went 6-3. My brother graduated in 77 on a 76 team that was last conference champion from Knox. That's a long time ago. Huge challenge. It's great to hear you talk. It's great to hear your passion and your purpose. My specific question is this. You have some seniors who didn't get a chance to compete and complete their fall experience. How many are coming back, and what have you done to motivate them? And what do you think about the squad that's presently juniors and sophomores and the Jordan Anderson, Hunter Anderson brothers of the world? Please.
Yep, absolutely. We have 3 guys that are for sure coming back this spring. We have a couple of guys that are kind of feeling out this spring as far as where those internships are going to go. And what that's going to look like in the fall, whether they do their 5th year in the fall, which is tough, right? Because there's going to be some stuff going on in the spring that maybe they're not going to be a part of. But I think that's what COVID has done, is made every experience very unique and individualized. And a couple of those guys have, job opportunities. They've got grad school opportunity, or they've got an opportunity to come back to football. And they are so torn because all of them probably presents a really positive experience for them. But they've got to let the cards shake out. And I wanted to let those guys know that are kind of in that group, that are kind of weighing that option of what they will do, is that we will be here. And my job is, if you decide then that you want to maximize your experience and come back for football, well, then we'll coach you up. No different, because your whole life for the last, 17 months or a little over a year has been so different. That we need to make sure that we give you an opportunity to get the experience that you want from here. As far as, what I see from the guys is kind of what I said earlier. I see an energy. I see guys that want to work hard, maybe guys that aren't entirely sure what that looks like. So sometimes it's maybe a little deer in headlights look. But when I was running wave drill the other day, I'm doing wave drill with them. I'm shuffling, I'm back and forth, we're sprinting and we're moving. And I think they saw my energy with regards to trying to do as many of those reps with them and be fired up. What I got out of that was I saw eyes looking me in the face. They saw my energy and they were like, okay, coach, like, we're going to try and match this. And there are a couple of them that were just dead tired by the time we got done, 60 minutes later. But I see their willingness. And I think definitely the thing that I've talked to these guys about is I work to establish our identity, my philosophy, culture, whatever you want to call it, is I've asked for a willing attitude, relentless effort, and quality execution. And I tell them that that's going to impact us on the football field. That's going to impact you in life. And right now I can tell you that on Monday afternoon, when we got out, after weights and we went out and we ran, I got a willing attitude and I did get relentless effort. It might've been pretty slow to move at the end of it, coming back for the first time on the field, but I was getting the effort and that excites me. And I definitely think, you know, as you look at the classes on down, obviously we've got some really, really good athletes, and we won't have those guys this spring either. Some of our better football players, you know, on the roster over the past few years are two-sport athletes. They're playing baseballs. They're running track. And, you know, my conversation with those guys is that I'm a competitor. And if you're on another sport, go compete. Do that. We'll coach you up on the background when it comes to football. Just like I know, you know, we had a conversation last night with baseball. Go compete, you know, and that needs to be your focus. But if you can get to a meeting, get to a meeting. If you can see us at practice, come see us at practice. Stay in touch with your teammates. You know, be committed on that side of things, because I know that, you know, for me and Coach I, our relationship going back, that Coach I wants the same thing for the football program as an alum of the football program. You know, he's not asking those guys for doing a bunch of baseball stuff. He knows that they're committed to football, and he wants them to go compete and win games for this program, because that's coming from twofold as an alum of things. But definitely, as you look at the younger classes, you know, particularly that freshman class that did have some really good numbers. I'm seeing guys that are growing in the weight room. I'm seeing guys that are starting to find an identity with what I'm doing now, because unfortunately their fall was so disconnected, you know, so they're looking for something to kind of latch onto. And the fact that now we're able to get out, you know, they went through the fall, they had COVID, they phased into some actual competition. There's obviously a coaching change. So now I think they're starting to see that there's stability and that they're starting to feel who I am. So now I'm starting to get the let's go attitude. And I'm getting a lot of that energy. And I think over the next 2 weeks, when we're kind of in our phase 2, which is our COVID protocol, we're on the field and we're doing kind of some football specific movements. We're doing a lot of cone drills, a lot of sprinting, a lot of wave drills, conditioning, but football specific with the types of movements we're doing. So that way, when we get a coordinator here on the defensive side of the ball, then we can dive into an actual install. Then we can work through getting our pads on, and now we can actually start talking scheme and those types of things. I think you're going to see guys that are willing to learn, and I'm super excited for the energy that they're giving back to me based off of, I think, what I'm giving to them.
Thanks, Aaron. Congrats. I got to go. Go Fire. Go Fire. Appreciate you. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you, sir.
I know it is the 1 o'clock hour, but we're gonna keep going as questions come in. Next one here, and this will kind of be a tag team for Aaron and Daniela. Danielle, maybe I'll let you take the lead on this one. What are your thoughts on when we'll be able to attend football games again? What is that kind of looking like?
Boy, that's an excellent question. Well, so right now we have a no spectator policy, and primarily right now we're dealing with indoor sports. So basketballs are going, volleyball will be coming up here in the next few weeks. And we don't feel like we're in a position right now to have non-NCAA personnel in the venue. And here's why. This is about getting these young people out competing. That is the #1 priority. And if having fans there is going to cause me or President Amat or another president to pause and go, well, maybe we shouldn't compete, then we need to not have those people in the building. So #1 priority, student athletes competing safely. We do not feel like right now we're in a position to do that indoors. And there are just a lot, you know, if you have some time, go to the NCAA website and read some of the game operations requirements and the officials requirements. And it is a mammoth proposition. And as a D3 school, I do not have a game operations staff of 10 full-time people like the Ohio State or whomever. So that's one. Relative to football and outdoor sports, I think that President Amat talk weekly. We talk weekly about where are we at as a college, where are we at as a county, where are we at as a state, because all of those things impact us. And I do think there's a willingness to consider fans on a very limited basis at some point. We are not at that point. The good news for football is their point is, you know, at the end of April and beginning of May. So I am cautiously optimistic that at some point our conversations will turn to how are we doing it, not if we're doing it, but we're not quite there yet. And again, we're just starting to inch our way back into competition. We need to see how it goes. And we're also forming habits with our young people. They have to be in the protocols, and they're getting used to what this new world is like, and they're doing a great job. But I would be lying if I told you anything other than what I just said. It's a consideration. It's something we're very cognizant of, but it will be very, very limited when we do it. And we have to do it in a manner that the NCAA dictates, and our league. Our league is going to come out later today with kind of the parameters for spring, not for now, but for spring. And we're going to have to work within those parameters. And I think the other thing I would point out is all of our venues are different. It's one thing to say we're going to allow 50 people into football. We have one gate that opens and closes, and I can count them. If you've been to our baseball stadium, that's a very different problem because we don't have one entry or one exit. So we're going to have to do it on a venue by venue basis, depending on, again, how the college is doing and what we feel like we have the resources to do, and do it safely and do it well. Number one priority, keep these young people healthy and keep our coaches and our staff healthy as well, our faculty. So kind of a long-winded answer to a really short question.
I'll jump in here too to say that the Midwest Conference, you know, we have people in 3 different states. So Iowa and Illinois, for example, rather different approaches to the pandemic. Wisconsin, also very different. So when the league comes together to try to figure out how do we level a playing field for competitors in different states with very different requirements for COVID, it's hard to do that. So I think one of the things that you would have observed is that the Midwest Conference has tried to set, as I've said, a level playing field that keeps everybody safe. So even if your players, you know, another team's coming from Iowa, if they were to come to Illinois, we have to think about that. We have to think about what is the likelihood that they are, for example, at Knox, we are testing half the campus every other week. And our last test, we had not a single positive case. But we don't know that that will be true for every opposing team that comes in. We don't know where they're going to have come from, what their situation will be. And so I think you're going to likely see from the Midwest Conference both a recognition that we are in different places geographically with different rules, but also a recognition of, as Daniela just said, that our venues are different. So, you know, in Illinois, the rules for ticketed access, fixed seating for a spectator sport, that's different. Now, you know, you can't just have a bunch of people spread out blankets on a berm because Illinois won't let you do that right now. So you'll see the league wrestle with the differing venues and the differing states. But the core purpose is what Daniela said. We want our students really to be able to play. And then I would just come back to the D3 thing. One of the most important things about D3, when I've been on the D3 governing board for the NCAA, the President's Council, is that our primary goal is the experience of the student athletes, not the spectators. This is about them. That's who we're seeking to enhance the experience and make it a lifelong experience that they'll never forget. But we are focused on them. We're not so focused on the spectator experience as you might in Division I. She said during March Madness.
And I guess, you know, I'll jump on and it's not much more than what those guys, you know, have to say, but I'm working with them. But ultimately, it's exactly what President Mott said. It is about the student athlete experience. And I know, you know, as a player, the competitor in me, if given the opportunity to play, my parents never missed a game. In high school, college, my parents did the whole split. My brother played a playoff game in Knoxville, and I was home in Galesburg, and then they switched at halftime. You know, I was fortunate to have parents like that. But if it came down to me playing in a game and my parents, you know, having to not be there, I would have told them to watch the live stream. And that may make me very unique, but it's about It's about these student athletes getting an opportunity to play the games that they love, and it's part of why they're here. That's part of their experience, is to be student athletes. So let's let them be student athletes.
I suppose here we'll give a kind of last call for questions before we wrap this up here today.
We'll jump in for a question if no one else is going to ask. So, Andrew Paul, class of 15, I've heard you talk several times about Coach Gibbons. Are you telling me that Coach Gibbons is getting closer towards the football team than the steps he's taken away in the past?
Coach Gibbons will not be involved with football at this point, not necessarily because I have a preference one way or the other, because he wants to be a dad. And I think that's the most important thing to him right now with Charlie here. But he's with our guys all the time as the full-time strength coach now. And in what he has in programming for our guys, he's around them all day, every day. And obviously that's a huge benefit for me to have a guy that's done the job here and somebody that I look up to, as a mentor, that I can just walk right down the stairs from my office and I can go, talk to him. And he looks at it in so many different ways. He looks at it as, I think now as an adult, he looks at it as my friend. I think he looks at the conversations that we have as a mentor. I think he looks at those conversations as a coworker. And I think the beautiful thing for me with regards to our relationship is that he's able to kind of take all of that, and then we have an all-encompassing conversation. But he is around our guys. I want him around our guys as much as possible. But I can tell you, as far as on the field football stuff, I know his priority is to be a dad and to be able to watch Charlie play football and baseball and be able to do as much of that as possible. And as a young dad myself, I think that I admire that's where he wants to be, is be dad.
All right. Well, with that said, I think I will pitch it to Danielle to wrap us up here today.
Well, thanks. And thank you, Coach, for being here, and crew for moderating this. And gosh, thanks to everybody who logged on. It's been a great crew. I hope you all got some of your questions answered, and we're probably going to have a few of these as the months go on to keep you informed. We find it's one thing we learned from COVID, that some of these virtual live events are very valuable, and our alumni have been engaged and appreciated them. So I think this is something that we will likely carry over and will become part of our normal operations as we move forward in this COVID world. But thank you all for being here. Thank you for your support. Great questions today, and feel free to reach out to Coach and blow his email box up today. Have a great day, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you guys very much.